It was in 1769 that the fair Isle of Corsica reached an impassioned hour, an hour of fate, with tides of destiny, ambition, and courage coming into coincidence to hammer out the future of this mountain jewel of the Mediterranean, with intoxicating landscapes and rich cultural heritage, who for long had fired the imagination of empires. For centuries, Corsica had been a cat's paw to the Roman Empire, the Republic of Genoa, and other power players in the area, but from that the people had hammered out a burning identity woven from their own language, traditions, and dreams of liberty. Here harks back the entrance of Pasquale Paoli, charismatic visionary, who in 1755 led the Corsican people in a bold rebellion against the rule of Genoa. This he did with a hopeful heart and independence-filled mind found the Corsican Republic. It was a land of progress, democracy, minds bloomed with ideas, education insisted upon, and even the first whispers of women's rights began to take shape. The Republic prospered, its capital court became the symbol of the new epoch. The waves of history, however, are seldom quiet. Unable to regain control by 1768, a last-ditch appeal was made by the Republic of Genoa to France, trading Corsica for financial relief under the Treaty of Versailles. Seized with ambition, France hastened to capitalize on the opportunity by setting its sights on the island that was to become the showdown for Corsica's fate. In the spring of 1769, the Battle of Ponte Novo broke out. How tense it was, with the forces of General Pasquale Paoli in fierce determination against the powerful army of the French. Gunshots and screams by patriots defending their motherland echoed across the battlefield. The effort, so valiant, could not save the Corsican dream of independence from extinction by the French. It was in 1769 on the harsh island of Corsica that a child was born destined to change the world. His name is Napoleon Bonaparte. Bonaparte was born on 15 August 1769 in Ajaccio, capital of Corsica, which had just become part of France again after the secession and independence from Genoa. The second of 8 surviving children, he was born to Carlo Bonaparte and Letizia Romolino. The Bonaparte family would have ranked as petty gentry, or even lower, and wasn't well off. Napoleon made his Corsican background an important part of who he was as a young man, sometimes calling himself a genuine Corsican and chafing under the label of Frenchman. Napoleon, at the age of 9, was dispatched to the French mainland for school. He entered the elite school Brienne-le-Château and studied here from 1779 to 1784. Napoleon, a solitary and studious boy who was particularly good at mathematics as well as history and geography, though he always spoke French with an odd Corsican accent, had most trouble with the intricacies of language. He entered the École Militaire in Paris and completed his military education in 1 year instead of 2. Graduated as an artillery officer, 1784. Upon graduating in 1785, he got a commission as second lieutenant with an artillery regiment stationed at Valence. For the next few years, he shifted from garrison to garrison and picked up the practical parts of military life. He also became actively involved in the politics of Corsica, first supporting the nationalist Pasquale Paoli, and later declaring himself an enemy when parts of Paoli's movement turned against France. The French Revolution had started in 1789, and Napoleon soon found a way to build castles very quickly, by climbing the ranks of his military. He distinguished himself in 1793 by recapturing the port of Toulon from royalist forces and their British allies. By the age of 24, his success in Toulon had led to a promotion as brigadier general. Even though Napoleon enjoyed many successes, his fortunes swung widely during the Revolutionary era. He was arrested for 5 weeks during the Reign of Terror in 1794 on account of his relations with fallen figure Maximilien Robespierre. He was, however, freed after fall of Robespierre and quickly reinstated to his command. Napoleon took over the army of France in Italy, 1796. For the next 2 years, he conducted a brilliant campaign against Austrian and Piedmontese forces, winning several resounding victories in northern Italy. which obliged Austria to sue for peace. Napoleon emerged into the popular and top general of France due to his performance in the Italian campaign. His skill at encouraging his troops, his strategic mind and innovative use of war-making tools became the stuff of legend. Napoleon offered to help Egypt's indigenous factions seize power. Seeking ways of undermining Britain's access to its empire in India, Napoleon aimed at invading the obstacles blocking him and his aspirants for many years. By 1798, the campaign got off to a solid start, with Napoleon taking Cairo and breaking the back of the Mamluk army at the Battle of Pyramids. But the British Navy, commanded by Admiral Horatio Nelson, defeated August 1st to 2nd the French fleet at Abu Qur Bay in a spectacular victory that left Napoleon marooned with his army in Egypt. Nevertheless, Napoleon kept pushing his campaign into the Middle East, and before long it was doomed to failure. Napoleon returned to France in 1799 when he learned of political unrest back home, leaving his army behind him. When he returned to France, however, Napoleon found the government of the Directory losing control in a time of political chaos. Taking this as the circumstances, Napoleon on November 9, 1799, 18 Brumaire in the French Revolutionary calendar staged a coup d'etat with his brother Lucien and several others conspirators. The coup succeeded in overthrowing the Directory and establishing the consulate. With Napoleon emerging as first consul, this eventually led to him becoming Emperor of France. As first consul, Napoleon undertook a series of major domestic reforms which drastically changed French society and government. Decentralized administration, reformed the tax system, and established the Bank of France. Among his most famous accomplishments, he established the uniform set of laws known as the Napoleonic Code, beyond doubt wiping off many existing injustices and being the foundation for modern legal systems in very many countries. In 1801, Napoleon signed the Concordat with the Catholic Church, re-establishing the Church's presence in France but keeping this under state control. It brought him support from people and helped glue together France, one that had been torn apart by the revolutionary anti-religious regulations. As well, Napoleon desired to end the revolutionary wars that had characterized France since the Revolution. In 1801, he concluded the peace treaty with Austria, and in 1802, signed the Treaty of Amiens with Britain, which temporarily brought peace to Europe. In 1804, after several plots against his life, Napoleon would resolve to confirm his power by proclaiming himself Emperor of the French. The decision was promptly approved by the French Senate, and in a superbly staged ceremony at Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris on 2nd December 1804, Napoleon crowned himself emperor by taking the crown from the hands of the Pope and placing it on his own head, signifying he owed his power neither to God nor the people but to himself. In fact, such was the extent of his ambition to be the paramount power in Europe that it led to a series of wars known as the Napoleonic Wars from 1803 to 1815. His armies achieved numerous brilliant victories. At the Battle of Austerlitz in 1805 alone, he defeated the combined forces of Austria and Russia. Another measure was the Continental System, an economic blockade intended to cripple Britain. However, the wars caused severe losses and growing resistance across Europe. 1807 witnessed the invasion by Napoleon into Spain and Portugal, the Peninsular War, which was, in reality, the actual beginning of the decline of his empire. What had started as an easy conquest turned into a costly and long drawn-out conflict which was having the effect, by its very nature, of sapping French strength and weakening the Napoleonic hold on Europe. 1812 saw the fateful decision invasion of Russia. His Grande Army set off at first with great speed, but the Russians resorted to their scorched earth policy, burn up the resources and retreat into the vast interior. The Russian winter, combined with a lack of supplies and relentless attacks by the Russian forces, devastated Napoleon's army. Retreat from Moscow turned out to be a complete disaster. Very few of his troops survived. The disastrous Russian campaign now emboldened the enemies of Napoleon. In 1813, the Sixth Coalition, now including Britain, Russia, Prussia, and Austria, among others, defeated Napoleon at the Battle of Leipzig, precisely the Battle of Nations. 1814, coalition forces entered France, and on April 6, 1814, Napoleon was compelled to abdicate. He was exiled to the island of Elba, a very small island in the Mediterranean Sea off the coast of Italy. Sovereignty over Elba was accorded to him, and he set about reforming the island, though he never intended to stay. On 26 February 1815, having barely spent less than a year in exile, Napoleon escaped from Elba and returned to France. His return was met with widespread applause, and he regained his power. This started the so-called 100 Days. However, another round against him was fought by the European powers as well. On June 18, 1815, the combined British and Prussian armies crushed Napoleon's forces in the Battle of Waterloo, located in what is now Belgium. Defeated upon his forced abdication on June 22, 1815, Napoleon ended his reign. After his second abdication, Napoleon was exiled to the remote island of St. Helena in the South Atlantic Ocean, far from Europe. This time, no chances were taken by the British government in keeping Napoleon closely guarded and ensuring no scope for his escape. The last 6 years of Napoleon's life were spent on St. Helena, within the damp and wind-swept house at Longwood. He was allowed a small retinue of loyal companions. His life on the island was comparative solitude and failing health. He dictated his memoirs during his exile, reflecting on his life and career, and defending most of his actions. Napoleon Bonaparte died on the 5th of May in the year 1821, aged 51 years. The exact cause for his death has been debated with variants across the board ranging from stomach cancer to arsenic poisoning. An autopsy conducted at the time of his death associated his cause of death as stomach cancer, similar to his father's cause of death.